back to another 3D printer tips and tricks video. Let's get right to it. Today we're going to talk about the MakerBot Replicator and the heated build plate connector. Now the heated build plate connector, for some people, is having some discoloration and is actually melting. So first, let me start off by saying that I do not work for MakerBot, and you should contact MakerBot tech support if you have any problems. I'm just going to share with you what I learned and what I've done to fix the problem. And it didn't slow me down much, and I'm back in printing, and so here we go. So the heated build plate is, you can see behind me, is this part of the printer right here. It's the platform that the prints are built on. It starts up high and it lowers as the print goes. And because the plastic, the ABS plastic, has a tendency to warp or curl up as it cools, the build platform is heated so that the plastic doesn't cool nearly as much, and it controls the warping. And it also helps it to stick to the platform. Well, the problem is that that connector that they use can melt. And this is my old connector. And what happened was, when it first started to discolor, I noticed it and I sent an email off to MakerBot support. And they ended up shipping me a replacement. But by the time I got the replacement, I printed one print too many on that original connector. And the pin on the heated build plate fused to the connector, and when I went to remove the connector, it broke the pin off the board. So I ended up replacing the pin on the board and installing the new cable. And that's what I wanted to show you today. There's really not a lot to it, but if you're not aware of the problem, and if you have a MakerBot Replicator, you should pay attention, because if you catch it early enough, you'll just pull this off and replace the new one, and that's it. I had to do a little bit more repair, and I took some pictures, and I can show you what I went through to reinstall the pin onto the board. And I've printed with it quite a bit since I replaced that pin, and it's working just fine. Haven't had any problems. So I'm going to try to show you some pictures. I couldn't actually video me soldering and putting the pin back on there, so I'll show you some stills. And I really wanted to show you more about taking the printer apart and how all that worked, but hopefully the pictures that I have here can explain it well. It's really not very complicated. There's two ends to the cable. There's the connector end, and the new one is red. The original one is white, and I'm just taking a guess here. If you buy a new printer now, you'll probably get it with the red one. I ordered it just when they came out in January 2012, I think, is when I ordered it. And by the time it shipped, they were still shipping it with this white one. And I think that the white connector is the one from the Thingomatic, which was the generation prior to the Replicator, although I didn't have a Thingomatic, so I'm not sure. The other end of the cable has got two sections. One set of wires is a positive and negative, and it comes with the insulation all the way to the tips. And so before you install it, you've got to take some wire cutters or whatever and just strip maybe ½ an inch of insulation off the end of each end. It doesn't matter exactly how much. You don't want to take off too much, because you don't want to have those bare wires possibly touching each other. So you can take the old one off and then gauge how much. And then the other side has a plastic multi-pin connector. There's 4 wires on there. The connector only goes in one way, and you can just match up the colors before you disconnect the old one, take a look at it. But really there's only one way for it to go on. So the only mildly tricky bit might be taking the insulation off and putting these into the terminals, but it's really very basic, and it's very well marked. And hopefully by looking at the pictures that I'll show you coming up, you won't have any questions. And so that's about it. So I just wanted to say again that this is not, I'm not recommending that you do this. I do recommend that you go straight to MakerBot and talk to their support department, okay? I don't want you to get in there and take the printer apart. But I'll show you what I did in case you're curious of what it looks like inside there. So here's the old wire assembly, and I wanted to show you the motherboard side of the cables. There's 2 sets of wires, positive and the negative, and you have to strip a little piece of the insulation off before you screw them down to the terminals. And the other side is color-coded, and it's got a plastic clip that only goes on one way. So just replace the new cable into the same spots as the old cable. You'll be good to go. So here's our MakerBot Replicator. That's the heated build platform there with some very well worn Kapton tape that needs to be replaced. And if we go across the top and look down, you'll see that red connector in the back. That is the connector for the heated build platform. Now this is the new connector. MakerBot has upgraded their design. The original one was a white connector, and the white connector had some issues where it would actually discolor. You can see this is my original cable, and what happened is the positive cable was heating up and melting, and it actually fused to the pins off of the build platform. And when I tried to remove the connector to replace it with the new one that MakerBot sent to me, the pin came right off the board and stayed inside the connector. So what I'm going to show you today is how to replace the heated build platform connector with the new one, and hopefully you catch it before you have the same problem that I did. So keep an eye on that connector. If it starts to discolor at all, stop printing, contact MakerBot Tech Support for a replacement. Replacing the cable is not hard. It's pretty easy to do. So here I've raised the platform. So there's our connector in the back. It's fed by a wire that comes underneath here, which runs down right through a recess in the back of the printer, which runs down underneath the printer. Hopefully you can see that. It comes down and it basically gets fed across underneath that board, and it has a couple of spots where it connects. One set of wires has a plastic connection pin, and there's two bare wires that you have to strip and screw down to some terminals. And to get into there, this wooden plate here comes off on the bottom, and you can see it's just notched in with a couple of supports there, and there's one screw, and that screw is right here. We're looking at the right side of the replicator, and that'll get you right down and expose all the electronics. I'll give you one tip. When you go to put this board back, there's a little nut inside the wooden panel there, and it's pretty tricky to hold the nut in the right place while you try to get the screw into it. So I just used some tape, and I taped the nut to the board, and it made it quick work to just get that screw right back in there. So I think I'll move it now from the video, and I'll show you some stills so I can explain it a little better. But basically you just want to snake that wire down here, and once you have this board removed, you can see where it connects. You want to disconnect the old wire, reconnect the new wire, feed it through. Make sure to use these strain relief clips. Clip your wire there. There's also one underneath the platform right here. Now before you print anything, I recommend you come here and manually move the platform up and down. Make sure you're not pulling on that wire. You don't want the printer to home itself and just pull on that wire the first time you turn it on.